Should see live here in a minute. All right. In a coffee shop in a city, which is every coffee shop in every city on a day, which is every day. Hello, friends, and welcome to the 18th episode of Barista Unfiltered, a podcast dedicated to the life and times of baristas. They tell us what's brewing in their lives and work in this free-flowing and unedited podcast. Today, our guest is Joe Woolery. He is a former barista who worked at Caffe Driade in Chapel Hill, North Carolina about 15 years ago, I think. When California called, he headed west to work in the TV biz, which I think they just call the biz. Today, he's living in Oregon in a place called Klamath Falls, and we'll hear all about that. My friend Austin is with me. Say hey, Austin.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Austin.
Okay, we're going to get this party started. Welcome to the podcast, Joe. Tell us, how's your day going?
Thank you. My day is going great. It snowed last night and it snowed this morning, and the roads looked absolutely terrible. And I got the snowblower out and I threw some ice, and then I went driving around in the snow because that's what you do when you live here. And now all the snow on the roads is melted and it's easy to get around. The roads are actually dry, and I went and picked up a friend, and I want to go sledding, but I don't know if I can convince my friend to go out in the cold, because when you live here, it's not so much a novelty anymore.
How much snow did you get today?
In the past week, where I live, probably about 10 inches. Last night was like 2, maybe 2 or 3.
So altogether, you've had 12 inches of snow?
No, like all total, probably 8 to 10. It just depends. Like, it looks deep outside. It is deep. But then in town, like, I don't actually live in Klamath Falls. I live outside of it. And so in town, there's less. It's probably like 5.
Do you have a pretty good hill near you for sledding?
It's a golf course, yeah. There's a very big hill. I don't have any pictures or anything, but if I talk while I show you my backyard, it's all hills. This one is just full of rocks, and so
I was gonna say that looks pretty treacherous for sledding.
Yeah, that's where the deer hang out. So that's not so much for sledding, but the front yard does have quite a bit of snow, and it's like greens and rolling hills and sand traps. So not bad.
We're getting some weird noises now. Maybe check your connections. Maybe when you moved your computer, it did something weird. So just like
I unplugged the power, then plugged it back in. So
that's better. You're clear again.
Yeah.
Yay! Okay. So it looks like you kind of living out in the woods. Are you pretty far from people?
Yes and no. I don't know how much to go into history right now. The last place I was living in California in a tiny house was on top of a mountain, and it was 500 acres. And my closest neighbor was about 2 miles away. And so comparatively, I do have neighbors. It's not in a town. But yeah, it's pretty. And I don't have traffic and people and nasty neighbors that throw fits about stuff, other than my kittens, which like to eat birds because they're cats.
Okay. And hopefully we'll see one of those kittens because they're enormous.
I've got one here still.
Okay. Let's see if we can see this cat before we get started.
This is Cornelius, and he is about 18 months, and he is about 70% Maine Coon and 30% something else. So he's got the shorter hair. But he's also got a brother that has that Maine Coon look. They have like really long hair and bigger stuff in their feet. He's never been.
If you're not watching us on the video podcast, this cat's face is as big as Joe's.
He's a big boy. He likes to
15 pounds, right?
Yeah, about 15, and he sleeps on my chest like this, and he sucks on my shirt, and then his brother sleeps on my head. So he's my cat hat, and he licks my hair all night.
And how big is that cat going to get?
Somewhere between 20 and 25 pounds, probably. If you look at his feet here,
which he doesn't want you to do.
He's never been on TV before. No, I've played with his feet since he was little, so he's not like a normal cat when it comes to touching their feet. He gets a little fussy. He likes to slap box me when I'm in the bathtub, actually.
What does that mean?
His favorite thing. It means that I'm in the bathtub and he comes over to the side and he likes to play with the water. And if I like reach over to kiss him, he'll just like slap me in the face.
Multiple times?
Oh, yeah. Like, you know how cats do. Just that kind of thing.
Keep you in your place, human.
Yes, he does. They're more like dogs than cats, but yeah, he's still a cat.
All right, well, let's talk about coffee for a minute. Are you drinking
Let's talk about coffee
right now?
I am. I've brought some wonderful things to show you from downstairs into the upstairs. So I'm having my coffee out of this really cute terracotta handmade mug from Costa Rica. This is what the Costa Ricans like to enjoy their coffee from, much like the Chinese and the Japanese with their tea. I don't like wash this coffee cup. The outside is glazed lightly, but the inside is only glazed on the sides and not the bottom. So it'll actually keep some of the coffee grounds in there and it gets seasoned over time. And so that's the coffee I'm having right now. I am doing I can say brands, yes, no?
Yeah. Say whatever you want
to. I'm doing a San Francisco Bay biodegradable coffee pod from the Keurig this morning or this afternoon. Just because it's easy and I can flip the top and it's good to go and I like it.
So when you're doing the Keurig thing, can you buy like other, like not from the company Keurig?
Oh yeah.
Pods?
No, that's what I do. I get some, I'll just straight up plug them. Costco has, instead of the plastic ones, because I really don't believe in that, and I was using the reusable, there's like wire mesh ones, but those are a total pain and messy. So San Francisco Bay Coffee Company makes French roast, Italian roast, and espresso roast, and probably some more stuff. And it comes in a big bag or a big box, and then little bags inside of it, and they're all biodegradable packaging. So the plastic bags themselves are sort of that plant fiber stuff that if you get it wet, it melts. And then it's just like a mesh, like a fabric mesh, and the top. So there's one tiny piece that I don't think is biodegradable because it looks like it's sort of a more sturdy plastic. But the entire rest of it is, and so that makes me feel better. But you can get Dunkin' Donuts coffee, Starbucks coffee, everybody's jumping on board with that. My main issue is just that so many of the people that are joining the bandwagon don't do anything about the product waste, because when it comes to like plastic water bottles and plastic soda bottles and all the Keurig cups, like that's something that personally I really feel passionately about, because I don't want to leave that kind of footprint with my garbage.
Yeah, of course. I didn't know they were making biodegradable pods.
Mm-hmm. Some people have like 50% and 70%, but these I think claim to be 100%, and they're at least 90 from what I can gather looking at them.
So you put the hi Cornelius's tail. If you put the pod in the Keurig, then you just I've seen these, but I've never used one. You just put the lid down, and there's water inside of it, and then it makes your coffee in your mug below.
Yep, it's you can do different sizes, and you can. I do like cream first. I don't put sugar in my coffee, but I put cream in it just because I like the nuttier flavors in coffee, and any kind of. I use lactose-free milk. I'm not lactose intolerant, but that kind of milk has a sweetness to it. And so it brings out sort of the nutty flavor and aroma of the coffee. And plus, I'm somebody that likes to cool my coffee off and then chug it.
Cool it off how?
With milk.
I see. So how much milk are you putting in there?
Not a whole lot. Can you see?
Yeah, it looks pretty milky.
Yeah, probably. Let's
Not
say
1 to 1.
ratios. No, but let's say ratios. It's probably a fifth.
Okay.
So, because I like to cool it off when I go out for coffee at coffee places. West Coast has these drive-through coffee things. I can remember living in the South and going to South Carolina, and you guys, and even North Carolina had them. You guys remember the brew-through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you watching and or listening in the South, I don't know if it's still a thing. I can't imagine it wouldn't be, but it's like a Jiffy Lube, and you drive in and you get your alcohol and then you drive out. So it's drive-through booze. And what I've found in Northern California and Oregon is, unlike Starbucks having just like a drive-through coffee, there's these like huts of Dutch Brothers and Human Bean. And what's another one? Anyway, that's like the thing here. But I don't know. Once again, I don't know where I was going with that. I don't like that kind of market, I guess. If I do go, I take my own container, and typically I don't like the coffee at bigger boxes because they have to burn it. I don't know if anybody's talked about this with you guys so far, but we used to Austin and I worked together, and we always called it Charbucks because we were aware that they buy so many green beans that they can't do a full city roast and medium roast. They say it is, but it's not, because those green beans sit around in a giant warehouse by the ton, and they end up molding. Some of them, not all the time, not trying to diss Starbucks or anything, like great company, huge company. But yeah, they have to burn that mold off. It doesn't hurt you. It's just like toast, But yeah, that's why a lot of their coffee is darker, even when it says it's lighter. And so, and that was my point actually, is macchiato, caramel macchiato. Well, macchiato just means like a mark, like a little bitty drip of heavy whipping cream. Or quit, dude. Cornelius is trying to play with my iPod. Little bitty drop of cream or something like that. And so when I go through to cool off my espresso, I'll say, I want a macchiato, but I want a macchiato. Like, I just want a little dollop, and it tends to create confusion sometimes in any kind of chain coffee shop. How
close is your coffee shop right now?
There's one here at the ranch, and it's probably about a mile away. It's like a little market and breakfasty stuff, and they, like cutesy little grocery store thing. And oh my God, you guys might have to watch this for a second because it's just too funny. Let go. Other than that, town, dude, let go. He is throwing my charging box for my Bluetooth headphones that I'm using to talk to you guys, while he decides that he's going to attack the fish. Yeah. Which is funny because I hope he doesn't end our podcast here. The fish actually likes him. Like, they really get along. Like, he does this, and the fish, rather than like freak out and have a heart attack, he actually comes up to the side and he gets all excited. He's trying to make
friends now. The fish is like, I got to deal with this. I might as well be friends with that cat.
Yeah. And his head is the same size as the fish bowl, pretty much.
Yeah, yes. The cat's huge. Yeah. Okay, well, we can keep looking at the cat, but let's talk about your first barista job, and tell me, was it Caffe Driade, or where were you when you first got into coffee?
So, I don't even remember where I was in life, but yeah, it was Driade, and I was hanging out there a lot because I really liked the fact that it was an outdoor cafe, and that everybody there was just so cool. Like Austin, case in point, he worked there before me. We had Jason Lord back then. I think Carl was working before I worked there. Anyway, I don't know how many of these people you've gotten back in touch with, but it was just such a good vibe, such good people, and really like top quality espresso. Like, I still compare everything that I have and do to the quality of espresso that we got from Broad Street, and the training that we received as baristas, and the ability to like really hone in and dial down your ristretto shots, especially dealing with the wintertime cold and the dry and the summertime heat and the humidity. in one shift, you might have to adjust your grind like 4 or 5 times just to accommodate
I've never worked anywhere where you
humidity.
adjusted your grind to more than you do
Yeah.
there. I mean, it was, and sometimes somebody would order a drink and we would like re-pour the shot like 4 or 5 times before we would actually serve it, which I mean, literally I've never, and to be fair, these days the grinders are more consistent than they were back then. So they definitely hold a grind better. But also, I mean, I think living in the South with all the humidity and just sort of the changeable weather, it was always changing.
Yeah, and you and I both worked in the morning, so it went from cold and or like frozen to hot and humid with like the temperatures rises, and so from I think you remember 9 to 10 a.m. you're just chasing that grind the whole time.
I'm surprised that was the first coffee. I didn't know that was the first coffee shop you'd ever worked at. So like when who was it? Who hired you? Was it Robin Anderson?
No, it was actually Larry pushed. Scott and Beth owned it already. But they had just gotten it, and Larry basically was like, "You need to do this," and you pushed for me, and also Brian Rice did, and it's because at that point, before Scott and Beth switched distributors, we still received Blue Willow teas, and everybody there
knew a lot about tea.
Yeah, everybody there was super up on their coffee, but nobody knew about tea, and I knew more about tea, and I still do, than anybody should. So
I remember you
as a tea specialist.
And Joe was a bit younger. I remember him coming in basically as a kid. Like, I don't know if you were in high school, but you weren't that far out of high school, and would come in with your bonsai trees and order genmaicha every day. How I remember that 20 years later is pretty amazing.
Genmaicha.
And so you were the tea guy. That totally makes sense, because I mean Driade was like, for the most part, like you kind of had to have some experience in coffee to get a job there. Most of the people had worked somewhere else before. So the fact that you came in, I was wondering, and like got a job there without. I mean, you worked with Applebee's before that or something?
Yep. Applebee's, and I was running my own landscape company doing native installations.
Yeah. I mean,
Carolina Coffee Shop, actually. I worked at the Carolina Coffee Shop, but I was a barback. And so we didn't make any coffee there that was worth drinking. It was alcohol,
Well, that was kind of deceptive, the name of that place. It wasn't, I mean, it was called Carolina Coffee Shop, but really it was a restaurant and a bar.
Back in the day, because it existed pre-Prohibition, and they had an actual coffee roaster in there, and they were their own thing. But ever since Prohibition, they used that back room to sell booze. And it was on campus. But yes, speaking of tea, I will keep this brief, but I am still up on my tea. This is, I don't know if it's backwards for y'all.
No, it's not.
Blue matcha, which, so matcha tea is the Japanese tea, and it's just high quality green tea leaves that are pulverized and ground up into a powder. And rather than steep the tea, you include and infuse the tea into the hot water. This one just has an addition to be blue so that it's prettier. And then,
really? So they just add something to it to turn it blue. I was wondering.
And I can't figure out what, but it's pretty. Because some people...
Does it just taste like regular matcha?
Yeah, it does. And then this is Sencha Company. These are raw cane sugar crystals that I use in my tea and in my coffee, actually. And then what I've been doing recently for people is you've heard of a Moroccan mint tea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, anytime you actually have a Moroccan mint tea, there's something about it that's different, and you can't figure it out. Well, what it is it's cardamom. And so if you take cardamom and a little bit of honey and or agave or just sugar, simple syrup, and then I don't have it here with me, but I use my mortar and pestle, and I crush up about 3 pods, and then the pod has these cute little seeds in it. And this is cardamom, which is the 2nd to 3rd most expensive spice in the world, and it is used all over the rest of the world because it's amazing. America hasn't caught on yet. but I have. And so I tend to make that for people quite a bit. And that led me into the coffees that I'm doing right now. You can buy this Bialetti in the States. This one actually was brought back by my sister from Rome, though. So I don't know how much different it is. They say that Guinness tastes different in Ireland, and it does. So I'm going to buy one of those here and see how different it is. And then this one is a Costa Rican, and Costa Rican is my favorite coffee. And also, my sister's been doing some travel, and so I got a bag of Reserva Especial Molido, and it is Caffe 1820 from Costa Rica. And the way that I prepare that is in my handy-dandy mocha pot. Uh-huh. So I don't know how much you guys have ever seen or used a mocha pot.
That's
and part of why I ended the Keurig this morning is because that way I can take this apart and show you. But so what you do is you put your coffee in here, ground coffee, put the water in the bottom up to the safety so that it doesn't explode like a hot grenade if something goes wrong. You screw the lid back on and you put that on your burner, or this one is also from Italy and it goes in my campfire quite a bit when I'm camping. And as it turns to steam, it creates a type of pressurized espresso in the top chamber.
Do you put your burner on high?
No, I put mine on medium because science class in middle school, they taught us that, the hottest part of the flame is at the top of the flame. And so if you put it on high, it actually goes around the bottom and it's heating the entire thing and it makes the handle hot to grab. But I put it on, I have different size burners and I put it on like the medium size burner on medium heat. And so the flame kind of goes up right underneath the base of it right there. And it actually heats up quite a bit faster.
So, how hot is the water that you put in the reservoir at the bottom? Do you look at that temperature?
I don't look at it. I do put hot water in it instead of cold water because it does boil faster. I would guesstimate that it's probably between 120 and 125.
Okay.
Coming out of the tap. The water.
What you're adding, yeah. And then,
yeah.
but then you bring it up to. I mean, it comes up to a boil.
Oh yeah, it's like 180 plus, definitely.
Yeah.
So cool. That's what I use, but mine's little. It's the one that's more octagonal.
Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah. That's the more traditional. That's actually the Bialetti one, probably.
It is a Bialetti.
Yeah.
There you go. So.
And if you guys haven't seen these things, the people who are out there listening, it is a really easy way to make your coffee at home. If you don't want to do French roast or that's too rich for you, this kind of comes out almost tasting like espresso though, but it's not quite as like, I don't know, as oily seeming as a French roast or French press is.
I would say it has less crema and like little to no tiger tail because of the way that it gets pressurized.
Yeah.
So yeah, French is going to have more oil, and so is like an extraction from a top-down espresso machine. But yeah, it has more of that espresso taste.
And for somebody like me who doesn't understand what a tiger tail is really, or whatever y'all are talking about, it's just great to be able to make your own espresso at home without having to like go out and, hang out in a coffee shop and get somebody who knows what they're doing to do it. Like I'm pretty foolish and I can manage it. So it's for novice baristas and people who have never been baristas but want espresso at home.
And it's a little less mess than dealing with a French press as well.
But Definitely. It's still a bit of a chemistry experiment, getting it dialed in so that your coffee grounds are the right size and the temperature of water is the right size. And it varies with every kind of different coffee that I've experimented with.
And how do you guys grind it? What do you grind it on?
I'm using that Bodum that Jake referred me to, like on episode 2 or 3 when we had Jake on. He told me about conical burr grinders, and so I bought that. It works really well.
And I just buy mine pre-ground espresso.
Okay. Do you know what coarseness it's ground at?
Mine's like a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
but it took some experimenting to get it like right where I want it.
Yeah.
Mocha ground coffee.
Huh.
And
that's all it says.
Yeah. Romo no chile frutta seca.
We do have some Italian listeners.
Corpo persistente. I'm butchering that one. Tostatura scura. Torrefacción fonce. Dunkla rostunk. Tostado oscuro. It's dark. But yeah,
It's like Italian French you're doing there. It's good.
No,
I heard a little German
there too. There was German and Italian and Spanish in there. But I've been told my whole life that I speak Spanish like an Italian, which works out well when I travel to Spanish-speaking countries because I'd rather be Italian.
I think the last time we were all together physically in the same space was in Chapel Hill, and then everyone dispersed. And I think I can't remember who went first. Did Austin go first?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think Greg was out here. And
Austin
then I was
July
here
of 2007.
Yeah, no, I was here. I was in Ventura in January 1st of 2005.
Okay, so you left first, and you left Chapel Hill to move to LA.
Yeah.
So tell us.
Well, Ventura. I went to a photography school, and then I started working in television and films. I was working in coffee in North Carolina, but I was also working for ESPN. And so I was at UNC Chapel Hill, and I was a triple major, and I had a TA be like, well, you're about to graduate. What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, well, you're supposed to know. What do you do right now? I was like, I do landscape, and I make coffee, and I work for ESPN. She's like, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I was like, well, not doing landscape in 100-degree heat and humidity and not making coffee. And so I just packed up and moved to the entire other side of the country without knowing anybody. And enrolled in a photography school and learned more about filmmaking and sound. And so I became a sound engineer and a post-production editor. I worked on some sets doing sound and set photography and production, location scouting. I got to do some casting, which is something I really liked and I wanted to get into. But there's only like 10 people that do all the casting in Hollywood, and it's all... You'd think it'd be huge when you watch those lists of credits, but those are all the same people in every film. And so then I got into post-production in Ojai, California, actually, which is Ventura is between Santa Barbara and LA, and Ojai is behind it east over the hill mountain. And so it's sort of like this Shangri-La, other Malibu, where the Dalai Lama and a bunch of like Ted Danson, Reese Witherspoon type people. I hope I'm not blowing y'all up if people find out, but it's easy to hide up there, so they're probably safe. But so that was really nice. I did that for 5 years. I grew the company from 3 employees to 30, and it just got too big too quick, and I was realizing that's not what I want to do. And I was sort of doing it for other people because they're like, what do you do? And, oh, I work in Hollywood. Like, oh, do you know celebrities? Like, that's so cool. And I was like miserable with the desk job. So I moved up by Yosemite and I got
wait.
Back up.
You had to meet somebody famous.
I did.
Well, who was your favorite famous person you met?
I don't know.
Tell us a story. Everybody wants to hear this story.
I know. That's something where if anyone ever travels to LA and you meet someone, especially you poor girls that come out to get famous, and you meet someone that starts talking about they work in the industry and they know all these people and they talk about it, that's how you know they don't actually talk. Because aside from NDAs, like you just don't talk about the people that you meet and hang out with. So I can tell you that one time on the set of Dexter, Michael C. Hall freaked me out like really bad because he is like very in character all the time. And then I'm also terrible with names, so that's a big part of the problem. Who's the guy from The Green Mile? The really, really big guy. You remember him?
I can't remember his name, but I know which actor you're talking about.
He is the funniest, sweetest, nicest guy ever. And when he passed away, it like really, like I cried about it just because like he was genuinely like he was in the Green Mile. Like all the roles he played, like he was just the sweetest guy ever. Gwen Stefani, like I never thought she was that pretty or whatever. I thought she was cool, but in real life, she is like one of the most beautiful people you can ever encounter. She just glows and radiates beauty. I got to work with Jacques Cousteau's son for a while. That was really cool. He's not like super famous, but that was like really cool because we were doing some just interviews. I didn't do the underwater stuff with him, but to get to hear him talk about his grandfather and just knowing he created underwater photography and scuba and all that. And it was based right there in Santa Barbara. It was cool. Other than that, it's just like talking smack about people, and I don't do that. So
no, we're not going to do that. So
yeah.
You decided you didn't like that kind of work, and what happened next? Where'd you go?
So next, the last show that I worked on was about tiny houses, and I was living in a big house on the beach, and people would come over all the time and trash my house and then leave and eat my food and drink my beer and, you know, trash my house. And so I'd spend all my time not working, cleaning. And so I was like, oh, tiny house. Like, I like this idea and this movement. So I got one and I moved up by Yosemite. And I had a 500-acre goat ranch. I started with 40 goats and I got up to 200. And I looked down over the entire Central Valley, and I had like 30 waterfalls on the property, and Great Pyrenees. I got the Maine Coons. I had like probably 25 chickens. I kept honeybees for a while before the yellow jackets killed them. I had milk and meat goats, and I hybridized. I like Dr. Marode some goats, so I made goats that nobody had ever bred before. And I lived in a tiny house, and I loved it. And my water came straight out of the ground from like a spring, and it was like absolutely wonderful.
This property owned by somebody else?
Yeah, it was owned by somebody else. But he was there like twice in 3 years, and so I claimed it.
So as a tiny house, like, is that like did you buy one like used, or did you get like a prefab kit, or how did you?
I was gonna build my own, but then my grandfather had passed away, and my mom didn't want me to trash her yard because she had left her job at Duke to move to the Central Valley, and she was dean at a CSU for a while. And so for my birthday in 2014, she bought me a tiny house. And so it was like completely done, ready to go, on wheels, everything in it, all the appliances. All I had to do was stain the wood the color I wanted and put my bed in it.
So is it the kind of tiny house where you have a Honda Element, right?
I had two, but they're both gone now.
Okay. So, but what are you driving, a huge truck, or can you just pull it behind like a normal SUV?
So my tiny house weighs about 6 tons, so it's heavier than most, but that's also because it's so well insulated and well built. So it needs a huge truck to pull it, which is why it's moved now from the farm to my photography partner, who lives on a different mountain outside of Sacramento. But yeah, it's just like hunting around for the best deals. It was about like $600 to move it, probably about 100 miles. But it was like a semi truck that he brought. And so that was actually really nice because that way I know it's safe and he's insured and all that kind of stuff.
How many beds do you have in your tiny house?
Just one.
Just one. And like you have like the entrance, and then you have like a little sofa area and a dining area, kitchen, bathroom, and sleeping quarters.
Yep. So it's 2 stories and a big front deck, and I had a hot tub outside by the front deck, and then go in the front door, and there's a staircase about 4 feet in on the right, that goes up to the second floor, and that's where the bed is and the TV, and behind the TV is a bunch of storage and an A-frame, and then there were dormers to make it like more roomy and give you more headroom. And then downstairs on the left of the stairs was like a little sofa futon area, so I could have company sleep if they wanted to. And then wardrobes, 2 big wardrobes, and then a galley kitchen and a full-size shower and the bathroom at the back.
So I stayed in a tiny house in Sarasota, Florida, back in December, and it was a disaster. I wonder if you have some of these same problems. Like one of us, and there were 2 of us, one of us could not be in the shower with the hot water running and the other one do anything else that involved hot water, like washing dishes or even not using hot water, like trying to cook. Like there wasn't enough electricity for that. Did you have to budget like what you were doing, or were you living there alone and that just made it?
No, I had different people stay, and I had an instant propane-powered water heater. And so my water came out of the spring in the ground, and it would heat everything instantly, and the whole house would be hot. And I even hooked up a shower outside for a while, and you could shower inside and outside at the same time.
But it's the instant hot water heater that sort of makes that work.
I'm sure it was, yeah.
Okay.
And that was just nice because it was propane powered, so I could just go pick up a gas tank from Home Depot or whatever and plug it in, and I'd have hot water for a month.
Is that the same kind of tank that you plug into like a grill?
Yep.
Like your outdoor grill?
Exactly.
Like a Blue Rhino?
Yep, exactly those, yeah.
That's crazy. And then does it just have a plug-in, like a big, like to get electricity? There's just like a big plug that you plug into the house, or?
So I could run my entire house: fridge, microwave, air fryer, all the lights, the fans, the TV, the speakers on 110. It was also wired for 220, so it was wired up so that I could do even more. But my house was energy efficient enough that I could run everything off 110.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Do you miss your tiny house?
I do, and I was gonna sell it and use that money to help my mom up here in Oregon buy another piece of property and build another house. But at this point, I might just keep it and see what kind of money I can hustle and buy 2 pieces of property and start another farm, because I'm looking around at work options and I'm like, yeah, I just want to farm. Like, I don't really want to. I'm good in service industry, but I'd rather farm. Like, I love it. That was my roots. That's what my grandfather, great grandfather, great 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 grandfather did on both sides. And the movement of society to like go into the cities and get a job and work in industry and blah 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 blah. And there's something in my blood that I just like to get dirty and grow things.
You've always had your hands in the dirt.
I have. That's true.
You really
More
have.
the coffee grounds.
Yeah, I remember you used to have a lot of bonsai trees.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
It makes me sad. I had over 100 in North Carolina, and when I moved to California, you can't take things like that into the state of California because of quarantines. And so within 6 months, it's not my mom's fault. She didn't grow bonsai trees, but I left them in her care, and I think I have 1 left.
Oh.
But now that I'm in Oregon and I live out in the woods, I have all my pots and stuff still. So this year, that's something that I'm going to do. I got a pottery wheel for Christmas, and I'm going to start throwing my own clay and making my own bonsai pots. And I'm going to start my bonsai business again.
Cool.
Yeah.
There was a whole exhibit here at the Denver Botanical Gardens of bonsai trees. And the one that was most memorable, did you see it? Were you here?
No, but I love those shows.
It was super sweet. Made me think of you. And there was one little aspen tree. Have you ever seen a big tree like that bonsai'd?
Well, that's what all trees in a bonsai pot is. Bonsai means it's not bonsai, it's bonsai, like bonsai. It means tree in a tray. And so anything that lives for more than 1 year, you can keep it in a tray and keep it small, and it'll live forever, because the reason that trees die is they get exhausted shipping nutrients from the roots to the canopy. And so any tree can be a bonsai. And I used to have some that looked like they were 100-year-old trees, but they were like a foot tall.
Yeah. This one was a little bitty aspen. And
Yeah.
so it had like 2 little stalks, and then it, just had its little limbs and these tiny little aspen leaves on it. It was so cute.
Yep. No, I miss it. I'm looking forward to doing it again.
So have you ever seen a bonsai redwood tree?
I tried to do one.
Would that be possible? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, it is. I had a bonsai redwood, a bonsai bald cypress, and I had a bonsai sequoia, and they were fantastic. And my landscapers in Ventura stole all 3 at one day, and they also stole my $200 skimboard. And when I called my landlord, and I was like, they were out front, they were blowing, and I got in the shower from the beach, and I came out, and all that stuff was gone. And they were like, oh, well, we have a strict no stealing policy. I was like, well, you might want to tell them that, because they just made off with my stuff.
Oh, no. Do you miss California?
Sometimes. I miss Southern California. I don't miss the Valley.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what are you doing these days to exhaust your creative energies?
So I live in Oregon now, and it's snowing, and so I try and motivate myself to go outside and play in the snow, but then I get cold and wet, and so I come back inside, and I make coffee, and I make food. I'm really big into food. I'm still learning like what to do in Oregon, because I got used to farmers markets, but I do a lot of Chinese food and Ethiopian food and Mexican food and Italian, a lot of soups right now, and so I'm basically in the kitchen all the time. My friend, I have to go like shortly here actually, because my friend made the comment. She was like, you basically like make food and then take a nap, and then make food and take a nap. And I was like, yeah, in the wintertime, that's probably about what I do. A little bit of Netflix here and there. I take my cats for walks on a leash, and sometimes I let them out, but sometimes I take them for walks on a leash. And then I'm trying to do a lot of photography right now and get my portfolio back up for just doing some winter shots and social media, sort of Instagram, TikTok, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And pottery. As soon as I can figure out how to center the clay on the wheel, like I am set, but I get frustrated because I have yet to I center it and I'm making something and it's fun and it's awesome and it's taking shape and it just like in Ghost.
Well, I think that it takes a long time to get really good at pottery.
Well, I was good when I was little. I don't know what changed. It's not like riding a bike, that's for sure.
I've never tried to do it, but I have friends who do it, and they're just constant striving for perfection.
Yep. No, that's what it is. So, and I learned about a new kind of mortar and pestle last night, and I'm excited to try and make one of those soon.
Oh, yeah. You can make your own. That's pretty cool.
I can. Yeah.
Well, listen, before we let you go, tell us, what are 3 coffee shops that you remember fondly and might be your favorites?
Well, Driade will always be first and foremost in my heart. Love Driade. Every time I do go back to Chapel Hill, I go to Sunrise Biscuit Kitchen, and I go to Driade. And it's fun because now a lot of the clients that we had then are the baristas. And so some things never change and some things stay the same, right? Like most things never change. Secondly, the thing that pops in my head right now is actually a coffee shop in Santa Rosa, California called Aroma. And there's nothing too special about it other than they care and they take a lot of pride in their work. And it was and still is a place that I can go and people aren't even paying attention to what they're doing, but I know that it's going to be correctly timed and proportioned and awesome. And then third, man, it really is not easy. Oh, yes, it is. In Ventura, we have a spot called Palermo.
Oh, yeah. You took me there.
Yeah, Palermo Coffee is awesome. It's this gift shop and espresso and snacks and all that kind of stuff. And they've got couches that you can, just sit and be in. And it's right downtown on Main Street. So like a Saturday morning farmer's market, you go to the farmer's market and then you go and get your coffee at Palermo. And same thing, they might not pay attention to most people because most people don't pay attention to their coffee. But they took really good care of me because they knew that I'm a bit of a snob, and they never made a big deal out of it. They weren't rude. They were pleased, and they would test me, and I got free coffee a lot, which is never something to complain about, because they're like, hey, how is this today? Like, we got a new roast or these beans, and an employee there actually went and started her own roaster called Beacon Coffee is in Ventura, and she was always picking my brain about favorite beans and how to roast them and stuff. So I have an affinity for that place because it's near and dear to my heart too.
Cool. Well, Austin, do you have any more questions?
I'm just happy to catch up with you and hear what you're up to.
I know.
It looks really cool.
I'm happy to see your face. I have to end it with this before you turn off the recording. Have you guys seen The Man in the Iron Mask? No. You remember that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio?
What was it called?
The Man in the Iron Mask.
No, I didn't see that.
I watched it when I was sick the other day, and I had this profound realization, Austin.
Uh-oh.
You could easily be related to John Malkovich.
I've actually heard that.
Yeah.
Are you really just realizing this for the first time?
I've never noticed it before.
Oh, people have told me that my whole life. It's so weird. Because I don't
never
really
like it before.
Yeah. I've gotten it a lot.
There were a couple scenes in that movie in particular that I was like, what, the Austin's in this fucking movie? Like, pardon my French.
Oh, that is so weird. I've never thought of that, and now I'm not ever going to be able to not think of it.
You can't unsee it, right?
No. So listen, I was working up in the Haight-Ashbury, and this woman was getting ready to move. And she's walking around. She's like, I'm just saying things that I always wanted to say to people before I move away from San Francisco. She's like, and what I want to say to you, she was like, I have these names in my head for everybody that I see as I walk around. She's like, my name for you is Little John Malkovich. And I just want you to know that. And now I'm never going to see you. So goodbye. Yeah.
Oh, that's the best. All right. Well, are we done laughing? Can I wrap this up?
I guess for now, I just want to say that I love you both and I miss you both.
We love you
too.
I carry both of you in my life every day. Jodie, I still practice Reiki and do some massage therapy, even though I never went to BIM. And Austin, every time I make a mess, I think of you in the mornings at Driade, because there's never been a more creative genius when it comes to coffee, and I always knew that, because true genius is always messy.
I'm actually, maybe I'm not as smart as I used to be then, because I'm a little bit neater.
No, I know you are.
I'm not the neatest.
I saw you at Spike's.
I learned from somebody that we interviewed earlier, Angela Matute.
Mm-hmm.
Watching this 20-year-old girl hustle behind the counter made me 90% cleaner. It's amazing.
Yep. Well, I want to come see you.
Never think that you can't learn something from somebody half your age, because you can.
No, I always learn stuff from me. It's the people older I have trouble learning from sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, y'all. Well, listen. As we're ending our episode, we again want to thank Joe Woolery for being with us today, and thank all our listeners for joining too. We want to hear from you guys, so let us know if you know a barista or coffee industry expert who should be featured on our show. Maybe it's you. Volunteer if you want to be on the show.
Really, think about it, people. We want to hear from you.
Seriously, we want to hear from you, and we want to interview you, and it's fun. If you can't tell already, it is super fun. Our email address is info@baristaunfiltered.com. So send us your big ideas there. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Thank you to everybody who's subscribing to us on YouTube. We so appreciate that. We've got some podcast patrons now through Patreon. So if you want to join the cool kids and support the podcast, that's at patreon.com/baristaunfiltered. I'm Jodie Lee.
And I'm John Malkovich.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been splendid. Y'all be good. Stay caffeinated, friends. Bye.
Bye.